Okay, man. On three, okay?
Alright.
Okay. 1, 2, 3. Okay, this isn't working. Is this really how you're supposed to load this thing? You think it'd help if we took out the spare tire? I mean, it'll be lighter. Yeah, I mean, if we drain the gas, maybe if we drain the oil, that'll be fine. What do you mean drive it up? There's no ramps. Well, I don't see any. You know what? Let's make a bet. I mean, we'll see who's right. 20 bucks. Let's go watch some YouTube videos. Huh. Imagine that. Nah, man. There's nothing here. Must have been a different kind of trailer. So yeah, bet's still on. I got an idea though. Is there a drawbridge in town?
Hello again, everybody. So a couple of weeks ago, I had to drop off my R34 up in Phoenix for some work. Since my R32 had just had some work of its own wrapped up, so I decided it would be best to trailer its younger sister up and then swap places for the trip back home. You probably have several questions popping up right now. First, you're probably wondering why I didn't just drive the R34 up like a good car geek would do. Well, it's 200 miles up to Phoenix, so that would eat up a good chunk of the 2,500 mile a year limit that show display allows for the R34. But more importantly, I didn't want anything to happen to the paint just before some of the work that was going to be done. One of the things I'm having done is getting clear bra and ceramic coat to protect that gorgeous Midnight Purple 2 paint. Right now, the paint is pretty much flawless since the car hasn't seen a lot of driving, after the previous owner had the whole car resprayed to paint match the new Nismo bumper and fenders he had installed. Getting a bunch of rock chips on it from a long highway drive would totally blow just before the proper paint protection got put on. Second, you might be thinking, this guy has a car that's supposed to be worth 200 grand, but he has to cart it around on a rusty U-Haul trailer like some poor basic little scrub. Loser. Okay, let me correct you on that then. First, I'm not a basic little scrub. My PSN account says I'm a level 13 little scrub. So there. I'm no slouch on other consoles too. You should see me play Animal Crossing. I totally own everybody on there. Ever see someone get teabagged on Animal Crossing? Yeah, that was me. What? No, I wasn't the one getting teabagged. And no, my PSN ID isn't Noobmaster69 either. Anyway, I use the U-Haul trailer because I don't own some fancy enclosed one with a sleeper cabin and stripper pole up in front. Or one of those nice airbagged ones that drop down and make it so easy to load a car that even your nana could do it while she's half stoned on eggnog. Besides, how do you think I could afford a fancy car trailer when I have 3 modded GT-Rs? no person of sane mind and any fiscal responsibility would own a trio of money pits like that unless their last name was Bezos or Musk or Wayne or maybe the Dragon. Messing with cars is an expensive hobby, as you probably know, so maybe you can take pity on me and hit that subscribe button before I have to choose a cheaper pastime like mainlining Coke or flipping tropical resort islands. Okay, getting back to hauling my R34 on a U-Haul trailer. I could have made this video short and sweet and just put some crappy GoPro footage of my Skyline driving onto the trailer, then add a thumbnail with a picture of a hot girl freaking out and put the words, "You'll never guess what happens at the end," in the title to bait you. Oh yeah, watch the views roll in then. But this is 23 GT. You know I wouldn't do that to you. Besides, the hot girl ran away screaming and saying something about a restraining order before I could press the shutter button, so that kind of screwed that idea. So what are you getting in this video instead? My best effort at making a comprehensive guide on how to load and transport an R34 Skyline GT-R, or any other low clearance sporty car for that matter, on a U-Haul auto transport. Who loves all you guys? Yeah, I do. Please remember that next time you're tempted to teabag me in Animal Crossing. Alrighty then, let's start with the basics. So what do you need to load a sporty car on a U-Haul trailer without destroying the front bumper and or ending up on the wrong kind of YouTube video? First, you'll need the U-Haul trailer, preferably rented and not stolen. Second, you'll need the car to haul. If you're thinking an R34 GT-R is pretty baller, then you should see the badass who put a McLaren 650S on one of these U-Haul trailers. Third, you need the proper tow vehicle. Yeah, a Hemet would be nice. I had to go with plan B and use my Nissan Armada, which is fine since it's been scientifically proven in randomized controlled trials that Nissans are 85.9% more effective at trailering other Nissans. The internet taught me that. Next, you'll need some ramps. You'll need them because the R34 has a low front lip and a decent amount of front overhang, so just using the built-in trailer ramps is sure to lead to heartbreak and a whole lot of crying in the bathtub later on. If you have the cash, the easy solution is to get yourself a set of these. Race ramps are pricey at $340 or so for these TR5 models with a 4.3 degree angle, but they can easily pay for themselves and reduce stress if you expect to haul a low clearance car relatively often. If your car isn't quite so low, then you can get a pair of these other ramps on Amazon. These ones, made by Discount Ramps, only cost about $50 and were enough for loading my R32 before since it has a higher front lip. They're also handy when you need to do minor maintenance jobs. They were too low and short for the R34, but I still had an important use for them, which I'll get to later on. If you know which end the saw should be pointed, and can use a hammer without ending up in the emergency room, then you can make your own ramps from wood like a lot of people do, or if you're not gifted in carpentry, then you can just go to a local hardware store and have them cut some 2x8 planks for you to make shims like this one I have here and the ones used in this U-Haul video. Be careful driving up on shims though, since if they shift from you not being quite straight on, or if you give it too much of the old right foot, you can get seriously hosed. That's why I say the race ramps are pricey, but probably worth it for peace of mind. The next item on the list are more wooden planks. When you get onto the U-Haul trailer, your low clearance car is bound to hit the metal tire stops if you're not careful. They're 6 inches high, so for most sporty cars, they're like hyenas lying in wait to pounce on your unsuspecting front lip. 2 stacked 2x8 shims on each side are usually enough to keep the hyenas at bay, but measure your car first, especially if you're a stance fan who hasn't felt the glory of airbags.
You want the bottom 2x8 shims to be just long enough to fit in front of the rods that hold the tire straps on. Alternatively, you can make do with just one shim, or maybe even none at all, if you unbolt those tire stops like some people have done. And I'm sure U-Haul totally does not endorse that, so you just imagine me saying that it can be done. I didn't do that myself because a previous renter saved me the trouble by neglecting to return them on the trailer I got. So that meant I only needed one shim on each side. Note that there are safety considerations if you do remove the tire stops that we'll get to later. If you have some thinner planks that you can purchase, or steal from your neighbor's dumpster like I did, you can use them behind the tire strap rods to smooth the transition onto the 2x8 shims. These aren't strictly necessary, but may be a big help if you're in a manual tranny car and aren't great at feathering a clutch. I mean, if you don't have decent clutch and throttle control, you could give it a bit too much welly, go roaring forward, and end up turning your sports car and tow vehicle into the automotive equivalent of the human centipede. Ew. So next, you'll need some tie downs for the back of the car. U-Haul auto transports have safety chains on the front and rear that you're supposed to wrap around something secure like a chassis rail. But I hate the dang things since they look like they could seriously scratch something up. Besides, on some cars like the R34, there's nothing to wrap the chains around because of the under trays and diffusers that seal the bottom. The front tire straps on the trailer do a good job of keeping the forward part of the car secure if you use them correctly. On the back though, there's only the safety chain. A better alternative is to buy a good set of auto transport straps and use two diagonally to secure the rear tires or the rear axle to the two D-rings in the rear of the trailer. I used these max tie downs that I had. They're kind of pricey at around $250 for the Pro Pack, but they come with these nice soft fleece straps so they don't scratch your wheels, and the swanky bag that you can use to keep the straps in when not in use, or you can also use it as a pretend doctor's bag the next time your friends come over after school to play. A nice cheaper alternative though are these Vulcan straps that you can get from Amazon for around $50 for two, or $80 for a full set of 4. The hardware isn't as user-friendly or as fancy as the Mac stuff, and the bag is just a cheap plastic drawstring one that's no good for playing doctor, but it'll get the job done. I can vouch for them because I used my set a lot before I got the nicer Max ones for the R34. Last but not least, you'll need a friend, or 2, or 3, to help you set up and spot for you as you drive up to make sure you get on straight and watch out for any clearance issues you can't see. This item on the list shouldn't cost you anything, but a set of helpful friends is always priceless. Okay, so you've got all your gear and are raring to load up and hit the open road so you can take your baby for that new tune that'll give it 800 wheel horsepower, or hit up that car show where you'll totally meet your hot Latina soulmate, or maybe just head back home after you accidentally smack the curb while trying to record the TikTok video. How do you use all this stuff so that you won't be recording another TikTok video later on showing the trailer and your car in a ditch with sheep taking a dump all over it? Well, first off is a bit of preparation. Remember these discount ramps I mentioned earlier that were too short to use for the trailer but still had an important use? When most people first try to load the trailer, they're usually focused on just making sure their front lip or bumper doesn't scrape. But just as much of a concern on a low car should be making sure you don't ground out the middle of the car as you transition from the ramp onto the trailer. Even if your bumper clears the ramps fine, if your car sits low enough and the ramps are at a big enough angle relative to the trailer itself, you could be shopping for a new set of side skirts or end up with some fresh scars on your shiny titanium exhaust. To keep that from happening, you want to make the angle between the ramps and the trailer floor as flat as possible. One way to do that is by backing the trailer onto an angled driveway so that your car drives onto the trailer from a higher position. It's not always easy to find a driveway angled enough to be useful though, especially if, like me, you live in Southwest Arizona where it's flatter than that open can of Coke I still keep in my fridge because all the supermarkets are sold out. An easier and more portable solution is to tilt the trailer itself. On a U-Haul trailer, you can do that by using the jack on the tow bar. If you crank it down, you can raise the front of the trailer so that it slopes slightly at the back. I don't really like that idea, since doing that also means you're basically pulling up the back of the tow vehicle via the hitch, and I'd rather be kinder to my SUV's hitch and chassis by not yanking on it in a direction it wasn't really meant to go. That's where the ramps come in. Just put them in front of your tow vehicle's rear tires, drive up, and voila! The tow bar is pushed up and the trailer slopes down for easier scrape-free loading. Of course, don't forget to put the parking brake on in your tow vehicle before getting out after getting onto the ramps. Here, you can see how the trailer has a slight slope now that makes it easier for loading. Next, you get your trailer ramps out and put the race ramps or shims or your own homemade ramps in place, making sure they're straight. Put the other shims in the front of the trailer to prop up the front tires, and add the thinner planks behind them if you have some. At this point, you should be laying out the front tire straps flat along the floor of the trailer to make them accessible after you drive on. Make sure you put them on top of the thinner planks if you're using them. Speaking of accessible, U-Haul trailers have a left fender that folds down to make it easier for you to get out. Make sure you do that before you drive on, or else you'll be back the front door as you try to get out and chip the paint. Then you'll curse like a totally deranged bastard, kick the fender in frustration, lose your balance in the process, fall over, hit your head on the asphalt, and wake up in the emergency room with a rather enthusiastic male nurse trying to shove a catheter into your special sausage. And all because you forgot to put down the fender. You've been warned. Of course, on the Skyline, the fender is on the wrong side from the driver since it's right-hand drive. So I hope you're decently limber, because you'll have to climb over the transmission tunnel into the passenger seat to get out. Unless you want to do it all in NASCAR and just climb out the window. Getting back to the front straps, the ratchets that they go into slide from side to side to accommodate cars of different widths. If the tire stops are missing on your trailer, then you might want to slide them outboard all the way, just as extra insurance that they won't hit your lip or bumper as you load the car. Once all that's ready, then all that's left is to drive on. Make sure you're lined up and then slowly inch up the ramp while you have your spotter checked to make sure your lip isn't going to hit. After you clear the ramp with your front bumper, then have him watch to make sure the middle of the car doesn't ground out. When you're most of the way onto the trailer, you want to stop short of the front 2x8 shims, and then have your spotter watch as you gently drive up onto them. Your spotter will first need to make sure you've got enough clearance below your lip or bumper, then he'll need to signal you when you get far enough forward. Once you're sure you've got clearance, drive all the way forward until your front tires are secure against the tire stops. If you don't have the tire stops, there's still a small lip on the trailer that can act as one. If you shim the front though with more than one 2x8 plank so that the tires sit above the lip, then you'll want to make sure and follow the next step of securing the front straps properly. After you're in position on the trailer, put the car in first gear or park, put the parking brake on, and then exit. It's time to strap the front tires down. The ratchets for the straps are meant to be lined up with the middle of the tire, so move them into position before tightening the straps. By putting them in the middle of the tire, they also act as a makeshift tire stop if the metal ones are missing.
It's worth making sure you do this right, since if you suddenly have to brake, you want something physically holding back the tires from rolling forward, so that you don't have the dubious distinction of getting rear-ended by your own car. The proper way to attach the front tire straps is to position them on the rear rod so that the outer portion of the strap forms a kind of basket that cradles the tire. Then you run the middle strap up the middle of the tire and feed it into the ratchet. You should have at least 6 inches of strap in the ratchet before you start cranking down. Once you do, crank the straps down until they're nice and secure. Next up, break out your tie down straps and secure the rear of the car. Use tire straps or axle straps depending on your kit, but for sports cars, it'll usually be tire straps because of clearance issues. You can see here, I've wrapped the fleece-lined tire strap around the wheel, then hooked the tie down diagonally to the opposite D-ring on the trailer frame. Ratchet the straps down tight, and then make sure the excess straps are tidied up so they don't just drag on the road. Or tie some cans on them, let them hang down, and put a "Just Married" sign on your car, since we all know you love it more than your babe. Just don't let her see what you did. Give the car a nudge to make sure it isn't going anywhere after you got it secured, and you can then wrap up by stowing the trailer ramps and folding up the left fender. There you go. Give yourself a pat on the back for a job well done. Now, just some important safety stuff to keep in mind when towing a car on any type of trailer, U-Haul or otherwise. Before heading off, drive a short distance, like a couple of blocks or so, then stop and recheck that everything is secure. You don't want to find out you missed a step securing the car once you're hauling ass down the highway and someone has a cell phone aimed at you to submit a clip to the Idiots in Cars YouTube channel. I did that check, then after driving a few miles on the highway, I stopped to check things again. And I did it again whenever I stopped. Call me paranoid, but you'd do the same too if you were hauling your dream car. You also want to make sure the trailer tires are properly inflated before you go on your trip. Typically, these U-Haul trailers are inflated to 50 psi. Don't just trust the rental place to do it for you. One time, I had to get an auto transport, and the stupid used car dealership that doubled as a U-Haul renter didn't even bother to hook up the f***ing trailer like they were supposed to. I had to do it by myself, so I definitely didn't trust those goobers to make sure that the tires had been inflated properly. Another thing to consider is whether you want to throw some protection on the front of the car, like some tape or temporary plastic wrap. I didn't have time to do it for the R34, and thankfully nothing happened, but if you're on a very long drive, or you know you'll be driving on some less than well-surfaced roads, then it's probably worth the effort to do it. As for me, my R34 made it safely all the way to my destination in Phoenix, where I dropped it off, and then picked up my R32. Once you've figured out how to load your car safely, getting it back off a U-Haul car trailer is easy peasy, as long as you basically follow the same process in reverse. In case you're curious, here's my R32 getting loaded, which was an easier job since it doesn't have as low-hanging aero parts as the R34. Well, I hope you'll find all of that helpful if you ever have to transport a car via a U-Haul trailer. If you did, please consider leaving a comment and hitting the like and subscribe button so you can catch my next video, which hopefully will not involve me getting sexually harassed by anthropomorphic video game animals. Have a safe and happy holiday season, and I'll see you all next time.